All right, Tigers, here we go. 13-3 on this Friday here. Focus on terrorism and military action at the time under Bill Clinton. So, what starts out as a rise in world terrorism that we covered in the 1980s under Reagan and HW starts to grow in the 1990s. Okay, so we'll cover some of those aspects here, and then lead into some U.S. military action that occur as well at that point. So in Saudi Arabia, in the Khobar Towers in '96, okay, you can see that this building was basically sheared in half and brought down. What happened was that bombs were placed at the support structure underneath in the parking garage, and this truck bomb took out 19 Air Force personnel and wounded several hundred. Okay, and you can see the death here. That's because here in Saudi Arabia is where a bunch of our service personnel were staying, so an easy target. The main suspect was Osama bin Laden. Okay, here you can see a picture of what used to be our embassy building in Nairobi, Kenya. Simultaneously, our embassy building in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, were attacked. 224 killed, 4,000 injured. Same type of idea. Taking out the structure, the support structure to bring the building down. Main suspect, Osama bin Laden. Here you can see a picture of the USS Cole pulled out of the water at dry dock. You can see the size here. These are people down here. Look at the size of the hole. This was a boat bomb off the coast of Yemen. Normally the Navy doesn't like foreign ships or ships that it does not know get very close to it. This time it didn't. The Cole received major damage, 17 dead, 39 injured. Again, it's bin Laden. So during the Clinton years, we have this new waves of violence. Okay, so after the Persian Gulf War and after our involvement, specifically with the Afghans in the 1980s. Remember, in the early 1980s, we were sending the Mujahideen, and the 1970s, billions of dollars, and we talked about that support. Well, once we started getting in tight with Gorby, we couldn't keep openly supporting the Mujahideen because you can't support both sides in a conflict like that. So we picked Gorby and sort of left the Mujahideen out on its end. And so after we then got involved in a Middle Eastern war in the Persian Gulf, Al-Qaeda and these terrorist attacks started to occur around this same time frame going on. So you can see, here's another image of the embassy bombings in Tanzania and Kenya. Okay, there's another picture of the Cole sitting in the water at that time. Okay, so we're going to get into other aspects of this going forward here in terms of domestic terrorism that we shall see. I apologize, I had a slide out of order. Okay, so here's bin Laden here, and just basic things about bin Laden. He founded Al-Qaeda. Basic tenets of Al-Qaeda. Muslims should kill Americans. Americans need to stop supporting Israel, and Americans need to leave the Middle East. Remember, we met bin Laden when he was a member of the Mujahideen, and we had trained bin Laden and some of his other followers in how to fight the Russians. They're now going to use that knowledge against us going forward here. Okay? So what you start to see now are these beliefs in U.S. military action under the Clinton administration, and this stepped-up action here. So what we called Operation Bushwhacker, it's a great name, in June of '93 was Iraqi headquarters were attacked because we fired one missile because when President H.W. Bush landed in Saudi Arabia, a Iraqi sniper almost tried to assassinate H.W. on this Saudi airfield. The sniper was caught, the sniper was killed, and then we took out Iraqi headquarters with one Tomahawk missile based on that thing. Saddam still isn't listening, so we bombed the city of Baghdad, support structures, power structures, things of that nature. Because Saddam had attacked Erbil, a Kurdish city in the northern part of Iraq. The United Nations called, go ahead, go do it, Operation Desert Strike. We launched over 20 Tomahawk missiles, so a much larger increase than here. And in '98, for 4 days of attacks, we launched Desert Fox, 650 airstrikes and 400 Tomahawk missiles when Saddam would not allow UN weapons inspectors into Iraq to check and see if they had weapons of mass destruction. So you can see the clear increasing power of our actions at that point. This led to issues in Africa. Namely, we have already mentioned Somalia under H.W. Bush and the idea of Restore Hope, where Aidid was taking food shipments and using them as leverage to cause chaos within his nation. So Clinton started to take the troops out after Restore Hope and allow the UN to go in and solve this problem. Well, the UN did not do a great job, and Clinton left 9,000 troops. This comes back to that war powers issue that we talked about before. Congress didn't really get involved. That's their issue on that end. But there's still 9,000 U.S. soldiers in Somalia. In June of 93, Aidid's forces took out 24 UN peacekeepers, mainly Pakistani. So the United States believes we have to go get Aidid. So Gothic Serpent was meant to go get Aidid. And if any of you have seen the movie Black Hawk Down, you understand what's going on at this point. 19 U.S. Rangers were killed and 84 were wounded. I should say killed there, I apologize, that's a typo. In a firefight that would later be termed the movie Black Hawk Down. One of the truest movies, one of the most accurate movies you can watch going forward here. There were images of U.S. soldiers drugged through the capital of Mogadishu, like they had in previous conflicts. Again, this is where Clinton felt, we keep coming back to this Kennedy and Bay of Pigs speech constantly. April of 94, leave the job for the UN. Note, it's an election year, right? Midterms, okay? While all of this was happening in Somalia, by the way, Rwandans were being butchered left and right, and nobody did anything. Clinton promised never let it happen again. This will be the foundation of the Clinton Doctrine. We'll get to that a little bit later, that we're not going to allow or tolerate genocide anywhere in the world, okay? Lastly, we see this push into the Sudan, this idea of infinite reach. Okay, we basically gave the CIA approval to get bin Laden. We basically said, if you know where he is, kill him. Don't call us, just do it. Okay, so on August 20th, 1998, the United States fired cruise missiles into a pharmaceutical plant in the Sudan. We thought that bin Laden might be there. Turns out the pharmaceutical plant was trying to create weapons of mass destruction. One of the reasons we did this was it's 2 weeks after the attacks on our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. Okay, at the same time, we launched attacks into the Taliban and Al-Qaeda training bases. Same thing, cruise missiles. Some people, however, accuse the Clinton administration of this being a case of wag the dog. Wag the dog is a political term meaning instead of a dog wagging its tail, the tail is wagging the dog. Don't worry about anything else but what the a dog might be barking at you, but typically if the tail is wagging back and forth, it's more of a friendly bark at that time. Some people say this might be a distraction for the impeachment because 3 days earlier, okay, Bill Clinton was forced to give grand jury testimony about issues with the Whitewater affair, which we'll get to that later, and he was also asked questions about a certain White House intern by the name of Monica Lewinsky. Interesting going forward here. Okay. I'm sorry, one more we got to get to. Kosovo, Allied force, General Wesley Clark, who later ran for the presidency of the United States. We talked about this ethnic cleansing yesterday within Serbia with Milosevic. Well, Milosevic kept doing it through the spring of 1999. We launched 30,000 airstrikes. We got our guys back. So what happened was we basically allowed the Albanians and the Bosnians there to find Milosevic, and they dealt with him and took care of him on their own account. And there you can see in 99, notice, after the issues in Rwanda, we basically come out and say, we're not going to let that happen. Okay? Here you can see the different areas within the former Yugoslavia and all these different groups of people living in the region, right? To that point. Kind of a messed up area throughout. Okay? Here you can see, here's Somalia, Ethiopia. Okay? We'll later get ID'd under the Bush administration. We'll talk about that later. Okay? And here you can see, here are Black Hawk helicopters coming in with U.S. soldiers on the side, zipping in to try and help and support as that time goes on. Okay? A couple clips I'm going to upload for next Monday. Some good things to watch and laugh and joke about at that time. So you guys enjoy the weekend and everything that goes with it. We miss you. Go Tigers.